Good evening, Transpac race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis here for the 18th of July report on our positions out here in the 50th Transpac. I keep apologizing for these analysis videos being later and later. My excuse today is the 10 hours of airplanes that I took to get from the East Coast to Hawaii, but I am here. It is lovely, and I promise to be on a more prompt schedule tomorrow. However, not wanting to miss a day, I want to give you some feedback on what we see here on today's tracker report. First of all, a little bit of news. As many have seen, in fact, here we'll scroll over. The icons of multi-hulls that you have been watching for the first few days are all now stacked up on top of each other here in Alawai Harbor in Waikiki. The first boat to finish was Argo at 2000 local time in Hawaii. In fact, it was 2050 local time. That was quite a fast pace. They averaged 20.7 knots down the race course. However, was not fast enough to get too close to the record set 2 years ago by Mighty Merlot, the Orma 60, 5 hours behind their record time of 4 days, 6 hours, 32 minutes. And the reason, of course, as we know, and having looked at these analyses, is that first night that they had off of the coast of California, and the California Eddy being that big vortex hole that the Saturday starters sat in. One of those starters is here, Comanche. They are getting close. In fact, they're close enough that we can switch over to the live 200 nautical mile tracker. For boats that come within that radius, the tracker goes from a 4-hour delay to being live and updated every 15 minutes. Interesting, you can see this approach angle that Comanche's taking coming into the island of Maui. I want to turn the wind vectors on here because flying in on our approach, you could see see Molokai really well. The Molokai channel in here was literally boiling. There were lots and lots of waves and whitecaps. It was a pretty remarkable thing to see. So it made me think that Comanche is going to have quite a nice ride on their final approach into the finish at Diamond Head. And maybe we'll explain a little bit about that here. So blowing this up, showing the geography of the islands, and Molokai here, Oahu here, Maui, Lanai. Interesting, Comanche's coming in here rather than having, and again, I wonder if Stan Honey is, who's done this many, many times, has done this deliberately, come in on this sort of low road approach, maybe expects to get headed as they come around into the channel, rather than coming in here on a lift and then having to jibe in the channel. They may do their final jibe in here, a kind of a one and in scenario. They are at this point 85 miles out, going 21 knots. As we've learned over the last few days of looking at these graphics, the orange area here is for fairly strong wind, well over 20 knots. I would say from what I saw out here from the airplane coming in, it was at least 20, 25, and for sure the sea states were pretty agitated. So I think they're going to have quite an exciting last few hours getting in. We're expecting them in about 3 to 4 hours local time. So that's going to be one fast ride. Unfortunately for all of you interested in media, it's going to be after dark, and I'm not sure we're going to get any great photos of them screaming down here in this stretch between Cocoa Head is really the first landfall. Maybe I'll zoom in and we can see that a little bit more. Yes, there we go. So from where they are, back over here, jibing in, going past Kaloapapa, past this point, and over here Cocoa Head, then Diamond Head is the finish. And this is always an exciting ride. You know, you see the lights on the horizon, you know you're close. And then actually even over here, the wind kind of funnels over here behind Cocoa Head through Hawaii Kai. You can get these big dramatic headers coming in here, big gusts of wind. You know, it's really quite an exciting finish for this ocean race. So Comanche's going to do that in the very weak light, if not dark, of the early evening tonight. So we wish those guys great luck, and we're going to see them later when they get in. Meanwhile, everybody else out here has been. Oops, I guess I go back to the normal tracker to see them. Nobody else is within 200 miles, at least for a while. The group is consolidated quite a bit. The last day starters are now fully embedded in the group, like these guys in the sled class, Merlin, Taxi Dancer, where are they? Somewhere up in there. There we go, Taxi Dancer. These are the guys that are now chasing down the tail end of the first day starters and the tail ends of the second day Friday starters. But the Friday starters are really the ones that have had the best luck in this race. I've been saying this every day. In particular, these guys on Comanche, they're really killing it. They are doing a fantastic job, really sailing the boat well, putting in some big miles. They've got 684 miles, but this is a kind of an old position at 1200 local time. It's now almost 1700 local time. So they've no doubt progressed quite a bit from this, but these guys are doing well. If we look on the leaderboard for overall, Comanche is average speed 10.5 knots, corrected. That's an oxymoron, by the way. Corrected elapsed, that doesn't make sense. It is corrected time that we're looking at. And again, remember how these were calculated. These are projections of their average speed going forward in time-on-time scoring. So it's not exactly something we can rely on, but it's not far off. So Brett Walda had the lead for a while. Velvet Hammer is in there, and now Comanche. These are all boats that sailed from the second start of the race. So all of them having done very well in not having stopped that first night, or like the first wave of starters, they didn't have to dive too far south. One other story I wanted to point out is another. It wasn't really a rescue at sea, but it was a situation that developed on Bill Guilfoyle's boat, Prevail. Let's see if we can find them. There they are. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on Prevail. Earlier today, they had an incident on boat where one of the crewmen got their finger jammed in a winch and suffered a compound fracture on that finger. And that, as you can imagine, was pretty painful. So they were, as you can see, kind of stopped for a while as they were addressing that situation. They got on with Hogue, who is our medical assistance provider sponsor for the race, and sought advice on how to treat this. They were given that advice by sat phone, and one of the pieces of advice was getting some antibiotics, something they didn't have in their med kit. So the race headquarters put out an alert to the fleet, asking if anybody was within close position of Prevail. VHF went out, and lo and behold, these guys on Vela, who were one of their rivals, another Santa Cruz 52, they were close. So the two boats overlapped here, or literally when they came together out at sea, and Vela had what Prevail needed, or close to what they needed, to treat this injured crew member, and so the rivals came together, just as we saw with OEX sinking the other night and Pyewacket. So another example of camaraderie at sea. So I thought that was a good story. In any case, everybody else is playing the shifts out here. Actually, I have to make mention of one other boat out here, Callisto. For those of you who are friends or family of Callisto and are following them, you have to know that this tracker position is not accurate. Their tracker has been malfunctioning almost from the first day. So what they're having to do is report their position every 4 hours into race headquarters, who then manually put this into this system. So Callisto may or may not be exactly where they're shown here. So I think what you have to do is just pay attention to what the timing is on the position report here. That's 11 a.m. Hawaii time. So that may not be the same as everybody else. It's a workaround solution for not having the electronics work completely correctly. Scrolling back out and looking at the big picture, we'll throw the wind on here. Classic Transpac. Now it's VMG downwind sailing. Just playing the shifts, getting between the squalls. Those that strayed north of Rum are now looking for options to jibe across from starboard back onto port to think about how they're going to make their final approach in, not get stuck up too far up here. Although certainly in the race course, from what we're seeing, the wind doesn't look like it's diminishing at all. Now, if we go forward a little bit in time, it still looks pretty solid green. Don't see too many blues. Tomorrow, about this time tomorrow, a little later, even developing some oranges, a little stronger breeze in here. And if we go even a little further out, still pretty solid if they're staying close to Rum Line, maybe a little bit north. Those down in here in the south this weekend may get in trouble. It looks like some blue areas developing of less pressure. So we'll see how they get through that. The Hawaiian-based boat Trader, again, I'm not quite sure why an Andrews 70 is only going 9.7 knots. Almost sounds like they are in a non-spinnaker division or something's going on, because I would think that boat for sure should be going at least a few knots faster. But we'll see. Some of this information comes up in the reports we get. What else? Gamble. These guys are doing great videos. Go to the website and tune into what Justin Edelman is doing with that team, and it's very entertaining. My guess, too, on this boat is they should be going faster. My guess is that because they had to compromise a little with the limited amount of cant on their keel, they're just not quite able to power it up like they normally would. And that's in deference to meeting the safety and stability standards for this race. But I'm sure we'll debrief with them afterwards and find out. Everybody else is in fairly good shape. The reports coming from the race course are all solid, and people are just playing the shifts and enjoying the ride. It's a full moon out there at night, great breeze during the day, and as somebody on the Gamble put it, it's literally champagne sailing. So that's my report for today, the 18th. Join me again tomorrow. Hope to have a little bit more insight on what's going on the course. Now that Stan Honey will be in, I hope to talk to him tonight and report back to you on what he says. So for now, this is Dobbs Davis saying so long, and we'll see you tomorrow.